we're watching, the usual suspects for the most part beat up on Trump. There are a few outliers, but what I am gleaning is that some of the people who are defecting from Trump on this plan or just giving him time to see how it works are people who are extremely heavily invested in the market. It's like, okay, I get it. You're not his priority right now. He wants you to benefit too eventually. But right now he's doing something that he thinks long term could help the bottom half of the country. But they're not used to that, Victor. I've been following Bill Ackman's X feed, and he had a post about you, tweeting directly to you, saying you made a compelling case for the tariff strategy, but that you had one issue incorrect. He claimed that Trump, he describes the Trump tariffs as reciprocal and proportional to these other nations and what they've assessed on us. In actuality, the Trump tariffs were set at levels substantially above, and in many cases at a multiple of the counterparty country's tariff levels. And goes on, as Bill Ackman tends to do, with a very, very long post.
Yeah, I don't think it's the way you calibrate whether it's reciprocal or not. So I think most of them are reciprocal.
Yeah. Well, I know what you mean, because there are some countries who they don't have a tariff on our goods necessarily, but we're just not allowed to sell our cars there. They've created such a green scheme that keeps us out that it's might as well have a 100% tariff.
I can tell you from agriculture, we dip chickens because we don't want people putting a whole chicken on the counter for more than 24 hours. So we dip them in chlorine-tinged water. The European does not want, what they say, we're going to make a law, chlorine's too deadly. Or the Australians say in 2003, one Canadian cow came across the border with mad cows. So we're going to ban all beef. And they did until 2019. And then even after that, they made it difficult. All of that we can do in a round two. But I do think it's parity. I live in a very poor community. And when I go to the supermarket, people will come up and talk, mostly Mexican-American people. And I can tell you that not one person the last week has mentioned the stock market. All they have talked about is trade and jobs. And these are the 50% who account for 1%, 50% of the country that accounts for 1% of the market capitalization value in Wall Street. But that's not the people who are reporting. That's not the people who are weighing in. That's not the people who, and I think people, and when they say reciprocity, that's what I was getting to earlier. The first thing they'll say is they would say, I talked to 4 or 5 people and they said, is it true that Mexico has 170 billion trades? That's not fair. Is it true that Canada has 101? Yes. That's all people care about. They don't want to have inordinate. They don't want to be the bully. They would either like zero tariffs or tit for tat. And if Trump can stick to that, he will not only get a lot of foreign investment and change of attitude, but he will get the overwhelming support of the American people. But if he gets into all of this stuff that we just talked about, which is valid and legitimate, but if he does it in round one, then people are going to come. Well, Trump's, I think the Wall Street Journal runs almost every day. Trump is lying and not reciprocal, or that is a losing argument at this stage.
Mm-hmm. Well, just to finish the point on Bill, so then by Sunday at 5 p.m., he called for a 90-day pause in the tariffs. So first he was, okay, I disagree with Victor a little, but he said, we have to help Trump succeed. It's the least we can do. Then by Sunday at 5 p.m., the earlier exchange was Saturday, he called for a 90-day pause. We've got to pause it. The president's losing the confidence of business leaders around the globe. This is not what we voted for. Got to call a timeout. Then he followed up by saying, if you haven't noticed by now, I speak the truth regardless of the consequences to me personally or what other people think. Then by Sunday night, he was taking shots at Howard Lutnick, saying, I just figured out why he's indifferent to the stock market and the economy crashing. He and Cantor Fitzgerald, which he runs, are long bonds, meaning they profit when the economy implodes. It's a bad idea to pick a Secretary of Commerce whose firm is leveraged long, fixed income, an irreconcilable conflict of interest. By Monday morning, he was saying he had been unfair to Howard Lutnick. I don't think he's pursuing his self-interest. I'm sure he's doing the best he can for the country. I'm just frustrated watching what I believe to be a major policy error. Okay, so with all due respect to Bill, I've seen this from quite a few very heavily invested people. They're against this because they're watching their own fortune or the fortune of their company go up and down precipitously. They see these massive falls, and they want to stop it. And I get that. But of course, waiting it out long term and letting things settle is what every investment advisor tells you to do. But separate and apart from that, they don't understand that this isn't about helping the Bill Ackmans of the world. It just isn't. And Republicans in particular are used to a president who is devoted to helping their pocketbooks. It goes back to the wisdom of my Nana, who lived to be 101. And when she saw I was working at Fox News and I was saying certain things on certain policies and starting to sound more right wing, she said, Republicans. She goes, we're Republicans are for the rich. We're not rich. We're Democrats, right? That was my Nana's wisdom born in 1915, and she wasn't wrong. And I think there's still a very large portion of the party that is used to that being the basic approach.
Absolutely.
When their
I grew up in a
president
Democratic. I grew up in a Democratic. All my siblings are Democrats, and what I was told was the Republicans, all they care about are capital gains tax and privatizing Social Security. That's what I was told.
Yep.
And Trump comes along, and for the first time, it's not what he said, it's what he did. He recaptured the middle class. You look at every statistic, data point from the 2024 election. He redefined American politics. The Democrats are the party of the professional and wealthy and the subsidized poor. And he wiped out the Democrats in middle class voting. And this is the reason why. And that's why he hasn't taken a Wall Street hit of the same magnitude in his polls. Because, as I said, 50% of the people have 1% of the value of the market.
Well, on that point, let me just play this soundbite. It's Scott Bessent, our Treasury Secretary, who sat down with Tucker last week and spoke to that a bit. Here it is.
We have President Trump's previous term when everyone said none of this was going to work. The China tariffs are going to do this. They're going to cause inflation. They didn't. This is going to happen to working class. It's going to be bad for working class Americans. Well, guess what? Working class Americans, the hourly workers did better than supervisory workers. The bottom 50% of households, their net worth increased faster than the top 10% of households. And look, I'm not happy with what's going on in the market today, but the distribution of equities across households, the top 10% of Americans own 88% of equities. 88% of the stock market. The next 40% owns 12% of the stock market. The bottom 50 has debt. They have credit card bills. They rent their homes. They have auto loans, and we've got to give them some relief.
And that top 10%, Victor, as you know, includes all of the Acela media, all these anchors on CNN, all these op-ed writers for the Wall Street Journal. Those are in the 88%. They are the ones who own the market.
Yeah, and because they're running around like a chicken with their head cut off, and as somebody who lived on a farm, I mean, chickens really do run off. It's something to see in my youth.
Oh boy.
And this is why I use that metaphor, because they remind me of when my Swedish grandfather would say, "Cut the chicken's head off," and then see this thing flop around.
Oh my God!
And that's what they've lost their mind, is what I'm saying. And if they would just take a deep breath and they would just say, "Hey, job growth shocked everybody. It was up 100,000 jobs that they said would not happen. The inflation rate is looking good. Oil prices are down. Energy are down 10%. On the foreign market, it looks like Iran is not going to be the disruptor that everybody said would happen. It looks like there is some pathway to Ukraine, a ceasefire. It looks like the Red Sea is navigable again. It looks like the southern border is calm. It looks like we can deal with Canada and Mexico, even though they have these huge surpluses with us. It looks like, if you look at Trump, what he's talking, extending tax cuts, deregulate. It looks like the first term in which the market went up 60%. If they would just look at that and calm down, I think, I don't know what they're trying to do, if they're trying to do a 2008 or 1929 psychological meltdown, but they look ridiculous. They look ridiculous. And you know what's going to happen if Trump cuts all of these deals and this investment? And you and I have this same conversation 9 months from now, and there's $4 trillion in investment. Then they're going to say I was with Trump the whole way. I tried to calm people. It reminds me so much of all the people that swore that Christopher Steele was a genius, or the laptop they just knew it was cooked up in a Moscow headquarters, or that Joe Biden was fit in a fiddle. Joe Scarborough, and I've seen this guy; he's never been better. And I got a call on election night, and from a very good journalist, and said, "Oh, Victor, I think collapsed. This Des Moines poll is the most reliable. He is down 3 points. If he's down in a red state like Iowa, he's lost." And I said, "This is bogus. He won that state by 12 points." So that class of this elite that owns stock, it's synonymous also with the people who follow every breath in the media and academia and the corporate boardroom and the legal community. But they're not Americans. And not like most Americans is what I mean to say. The majority of Americans don't think like they do. And I'm not making fun of them. I'm just saying they get touchy, they get edgy, they get impulsive. They're kind of, I don't know what the word is, but I drive over to the coast, each week on the Stanford campus. And by the time I'm there 48 hours and I come back to central rural agricultural California's Central Valley, it's like, wow, I just went to Mars and I'm now back on Earth, because they're not representative of most people.
I know what you mean. No, I think about it all the time, because now, of course, I've been in media for a long time and we have some nice trappings surrounding us as a family. But we used to live in this 3-bedroom duplex that was in an okay area of town, in this small little town in Westchester. No, like a 1-car garage. It was fine. I'm not saying we were poor, but we didn't have a lot of money, that's for sure. And we were absolutely happy. We were so happy as a family. And we drive by that all the time. And our kids remember living in that house when they were toddlers. And I always say, you remember what life was like there. You don't need all this money. You don't need a swimming pool. You don't need this stuff in order to live a really happy life. You need family. You need friends. You need something ideally that occupies your time on a daily basis, that makes you feel like you're contributing to society. But I can't help but feel that there's an underlying missing value here in the rush to condemn his plan by the so-called elites. It's like, could you just hold on and come to terms with a moment? What if you did have a massive wipeout on Wall Street that didn't rebound? I don't believe for a minute that Trump will leave it there. He too loves wealth. He loves wealth. He loves rich people. He surrounds himself with rich people because he so admires them and there's no way he's going to tell the rich base, you're screwed. But let's just imagine a world in which they do get a little screwed and they actually lose a fair amount of money and the lower half of the country rises up. I just think there's this piece of the people covering this, the ones who are having the meltdowns, that cannot imagine a life without their immense wealth.
Well, I mean, I can give you examples. I live in a 150-year-old house that was falling apart, so I had, people work on it to So Juan was one of the electricians. He had long COVID. He could hardly walk. I said, "Juan, how long have you been working?" He said, "I never took a day off. I can't." He was a genius when you looked at this old house, how he figured out circuit panels and everything. And then there was Jose, and he was a painter. And I said, "You don't look good today." He said, "I have a kidney infection. I have to go up for injections at UC every weekend." And I said, "How do you take the fumes? The fumes must add to your kidney." He said, "What's my alternative?" And he said, I have a mortgage on my house. I have car payments. California, I can't even afford, $5.50 for diesel. That's what everybody goes through, and they're not melting down right now. And you know what else? The people who are melting down did not melt down when whole towns were wiped out. They didn't care. because they were offshoring and outsourcing and getting returns on investments that were beyond their wildest dreams, when the legal class, the academic class, the investor class, the corporate class, the media class woke up in the 70s and 80s and said, oh my God, the market is not 280 million Americans. For my skills, there's 7 billion consumers. And I have a skill set, or I have a service, or I have goods, or I have the know-how to capture that 7 billion.
Tariff wars, stubborn inflation. No wonder gold has been routinely hitting all-time highs. In volatile markets like the one we have now, don't sit on the sidelines with your head in the sand. You can take control and safeguard your savings. Aren't you thinking about that today? That's why so many Americans today are turning to Birch Gold Group. They've helped tens of thousands convert an existing IRA or 401k into one in physical gold. Is it time for you to hedge against economic instability or market instability with gold? To learn how to own physical gold in a tax-sheltered account, text MK to the number 989898. Birch Gold will send you a free, no-obligation info kit. Again, just text MK to the number 989898. With an A-plus rating with the Better Business Bureau and countless 5-star reviews, Birch Gold has helped many protect their savings with gold. It took us decades to get into the tangled mess we're trying to unpack right now. How long will it take to get out of it? And at what cost? Text MK to 989898 today. Thanks so much for watching. If you like what you just saw, hit the subscribe button for more clips and full episodes.